Hello and welcome to Haunted Montreal's Spooky Story Sessions. I'm your host, Holly Rhiannon, and today we've got something a little different for you. An interview with Jeff, a man who's been living alongside a poltergeist in Montreal's neighborhood of Côte Saint-Luc. Nestled in the quiet suburb of Côte Saint-Luc, just a short drive from the bustle of downtown Montreal, is an ordinary apartment with an extraordinary problem. It started off with a rubber band, then a towel, then a burner that turned itself off mid-meal. For Jeff, what began as small, strange coincidences quickly grew into a pattern, one he could no longer ignore. Items moving, reappearing, flipping, rotating, lights turning on, doors sliding open, a sugar bowl found inside the fridge, a calendar flipping to the wrong month, and eventually, a push. This is the story of a man living with a poltergeist and what happened when he started paying attention. Now, without further ado, Dr. Mab and my interview with Jeff. So, Jeff, thank you for having us here to your home. We've been talking about you for a while on our channel, and now we actually get to be in the realm of the poltergeist. And we just wanted to start off by asking you to tell us a little bit more about you, about your background, sort of pre-poltergeist era.
Pre-poltergeist? Yeah. Okay. Well, I used to live in Snowdon. About 15 years ago, my family and I moved to Côte Saint-Luc, and we rented this apartment. And now I'm here by myself. My mother is still alive, but she's now in a seniors residence. And I worked, I have a Bachelor of Arts in Economics, a master's degree in Library and Information Studies, and I worked in various jobs over the years. I was working in a mailroom / copy shop in an institution. Then I worked in a library. Then I did some more clerical work for an institution which involved talking to people over the phone, filing, faxing stuff, and so on. And then in my later years, I was basically taking care of my elderly parents, and that was my priority, and I became their caregiver. And here we are now in Côte Saint-Luc in my apartment.
All right. And you, it was in 2009 that you moved in here, right?
We moved in 2009.
Okay. And the paranormal activity started not right away. It started quite a bit later, right?
Okay, the paranormal in this apartment started in 2019. But I did have some paranormal experiences about 30 years ago. But, so that might have been the very beginning. But then there was a hiatus of about 25 years. Okay. And if you want, I can tell you what happened 30 years ago.
Yeah. That's intriguing.
Okay. Well, first of all, what happened was my father had a habit of using a wedge of lemon in his tea, and he would put it in a tea bag holder. So that was about 30 years ago. So one day, instead of being in the tea bag holder, I found the wedge of melon on top of the lid of a sugar bowl, which was completely out of place. And at the time I was thinking that maybe my father was having early onset Alzheimer's or something. But now that I've had these poltergeist experiences, I'm now thinking that may very well have been my very first poltergeist experience, because he was actually at his full mental capacity at that time, and he wouldn't do something like that. So the only explanation I could think of for the wedge of lemon not being in the tea bag holder but on top of the sugar bowl, which was some distance away, it could have been a poltergeist teleportation.
Interesting. So you might have someone following him.
Yeah. It's possible. Another thing that happened about 30 years ago is I was using a Ouija board with a friend.
Oh. That's never good.
Well, he had a Ouija board.
Yeah.
And what we did is we went out to his backyard and we put it on our laps. And I made sure, there have been stories about people pressing on the Ouija board and maybe their fingers are pushing it unconsciously or something. So what I intentionally did is I kept my fingers very light on the Ouija board so it wouldn't move around because of me.
Yeah.
So then we asked it 2 questions. One of the questions was name a good car.
Okay.
And it actually began moving under my fingertips, like sliding under my fingertips. I doubt if my friend was pushing it, but it was moving under my fingertips. And it actually spelled out Mustang.
That's great.
Somebody who likes muscle cars.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now the second question that we asked it, which was quite intriguing, there's also like a yes and no.
Yeah.
So, had fingers on the board. I asked the Ouija board, is there life after death? And it slid over to the yes, but very strongly, like it just skated over. Like under my fingers, like, shh, yes, there is life after death. So that was pretty astonishing.
Yeah, the last time I used a Ouija board, which will be the last time I use it, I think I was probably doing what you were doing, where you try like to have your fingers touching, but in the least possible way. Like
yes.
You've got that connection, but if something happens, you can tell it's really moving under your hand. It's quite the experience.
It was really moving. Mm-hmm. It wasn't my, automatic reflex or something like that. It was actually moving under its own power, and I don't think my friend was pushing it. I don't think so.
Yeah, because if you have a couple people who really want an answer, you're both going to do your best not to push that.
Exactly. So that was 30 years ago, and then we fast forward to the present.
Quick question.
Sure.
Did you say goodbye when you finished using the Ouija board?
We did not say goodbye.
Okay. That paints a potentially really interesting story here.
Yeah, well, maybe it might have been hanging around all these years, who knows, and waiting for the right moment to pounce.
Mm-hmm.
Was that before or after the lemon wedge?
That's a very good question, and that question did occur to me recently, and I can't answer that because it was so long ago that I simply can't answer the question.
Okay.
But it is very intriguing.
Yeah, that could be a good theory here.
Yes.
Of you having someone who's following you throughout your life.
There's another possibility that was more recent, like the events here started happening in 2019, but about a month before I went to the dentist and I had some gum work done.
Yeah.
And it involved getting a bone graft, which was the dentist only told me about afterwards. Like he put in like real bone in my gum, and I'm kind of thinking maybe the previous owner of the bone.
Because you do hear stories about that, people having like transplants or something and having memories, and who's to say that a ghost couldn't be a part of that as well. Exactly,
and bones are actually cells. It's not just solid minerals. Like there's actually cells in bones, right? I mean, it was only about a month before the Poltergeist event started that I had this bone graft. I mean, there is the time relationship. I don't know if that's what's happening, but they are close in time.
Well,
so.
And in our first video, you mentioned a dentist in the information that you had sent. There was a dental appointment, right, that you went to, and you had an incident during this appointment.
Yes. What happened was the dentist told me that for the first time her x-ray machine didn't function properly and showed my teeth as opaque instead of transparent. And she said that's the first time it happened, and she had to make an adjustment to actually get the results that she wanted. So that was rather bizarre. And when I left that dentist appointment and went for a walk, I stepped off a shallow curb, and then for absolutely no reason at all, I fell forward and fractured my elbow in multiple places. But there was no reason for me to fall forward because it was a very shallow curb, my footing was secure, my balance was good, so I'm kind of suspecting maybe I got a supernatural push.
Maybe connected to you being at the dentist again, if it's related to the bone graft.
It's possible.
And to be x-rays to the bone graft.
I'm just like, I can't prove anything, but I'm just putting it out there as a possibility.
Yeah. Well, you've done the thought into the background of this, which is interesting, because a lot of people, when they have this sort of thing happen, they just kind of go, I don't know what's happening to me, or they try to explain it away, or put it aside and not think about it. And really doing that research into what it could be makes this story, gives this story even more texture and intrigue, I believe.
Well, one thing I feel is that the poltergeist phenomenon is not limited to this apartment, because things have happened to me outside of the apartment. Like just recently, like my mother in her retirement home, like she has a knitted blue cap, which she hasn't worn in months, which was stored in either a bag or a coat pocket, I'm not sure. And just the other day, my mother's caregiver found that knitted blue hat on top of a sanitary dispenser next to the nursing station 40 feet away. And she was thinking, well, maybe a resident who is not right in the mind went into the room and somehow fished it out of the bag and took it out. But I'm thinking, how likely is that?
That's very specific thing to pick up.
Exactly, like they have to find the blue knitted hat in a bag or in a coat pocket, retrieve it, leave the room, and then kind of randomly leave it somewhere else, and maybe somebody else would put it on the soap dispenser near the nursing station 40 feet away.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking another possibility is it might have been the poltergeist phenomena teleporting the hat from my mother's coat pocket in her coat, or the green bag, I'm not sure which, and teleporting it to the sanitary dispenser next to the nursing station. It's at least as possible as a resident doing it, at least. And even maybe more likely, because could a resident not right in their mind, wandering the floor, specifically root around in my mother's belongings, find the hat, take it out and just plunk it somewhere else?
It is very odd.
At the very least, it's odd, and frankly, I suspect it's poltergeist activity.
Has she had other experiences other than this, like sort of alongside the experiences you've been having?
Actually, she did, and this was when she was living in the apartment before 2022.
Mm-hmm.
She was lying in her bed at 2 a.m, and then I heard her cry out. And then she told me, I went into her room, and she said, a ghost was mussing my hair. Like she was actually feeling somebody messing around with her hair.
Oh, that would be so disturbing.
And that's her, and she's never said anything like that before, and she's mentally very alert. She's 102 years old now.
Oh.
Amazing.
Amazing.
And back then she was also like elderly, like maybe around late 90s.
Mm-hmm.
But she's very mentally alert. And for her to say something, like, I give it credibility. Like she actually felt a hand or something like playing around with her hair while she was lying in bed at 2 a.m.
Wow.
You know?
That would be a shocking way to wake up.
Exactly. So stuff has happened outside of the apartment. Like the laundry room is downstairs in the basement. So one day I had clothing in the dryer, and next to the dryer there was the basin, the sink, and there was a bar of soap there. So I put in my laundry, everything is fine, and I come back an hour later, I pull out the laundry, the bar of soap is no longer on the sink but mixed in with my clothing.
Oh.
Now I don't think that a prankster in the space of an hour would come down to the laundry room, take the bar of soap, take the trouble to stop the machine, the dryer, toss it in, then close the door and start it up again. I don't think they would do that.
It doesn't seem that worth it for someone who wants to do a prank.
Yeah, and frankly, the people around here are pretty sane.
Mm-hmm.
So I also suspect there was a poltergeist teleportation of the bar of soap from the sink basin directly into the dryer. That's that's the only thing I could think of.
You mentioned that you moved in with both your parents.
2009.
May I ask when your dad
Passed away? He passed away in 2013. Yeah.
So that was before the incidents began.
Before everything happened. 6 years before.
Has there been anything that seems sort of personal to him, perhaps?
One thing I should mention about my father.
Was he a prankster?
He was. He was. Like, there was once when I was a kid, I was taking a shower in the bathtub. I think I was taking a bath actually. And my father had bought like some little plastic rubber sharks. So while I was taking a bath, he snuck in and like tossed them in the bathtub while I was taking a bath. So yeah, he was I would say he was a prankster. But I have to tell you something important. I'm glad you brought up my father. About a week or two after he passed away, it was around 2 in the morning. I was standing in my room, but fully awake, standing up, and I hear him calling out my name as if he were standing right next to me in a questioning way, like, Jeffrey? And it was as if he were standing next to me. It was not my imagination. I heard it clearly. So for me, this is communication from the dead.
Yeah.
Now, for some reason, I didn't reply. I didn't answer. I don't know why. I should have. I should have told him, Dad, I can hear you. Keep talking. But instead, I didn't say anything and I ignored it, and I still don't know why. But I heard him say my name, Jeffrey, as if he were standing right next to me.
Wow. Well, sometimes when something like that happens, there's something in our brain that just tells us this isn't happening and we don't respond to it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's too overwhelming.
Yeah.
It was too fast. It caught me off guard, and I simply didn't know how to react at the time.
So, with these incidents, how often do they happen?
I actually calculated that. On average, once every 3.5 weeks. But that's on average. I mean, it could be after like a week or 2 weeks or 2 months. I mean, sometimes it's quiet for a couple of months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you had told us when we were coming here, like, I can't guarantee anything's going to happen when you're around, which makes sense. You know, spirits don't tend to perform on command.
Yeah.
Highly unlikely.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't expect anything.
Yeah.
When's the last time something happened?
If you count my mother's hat incident, maybe a few days ago.
Oh.
Actually, something else also happened a few days ago. Like in the fridge, I have like the butter compartment, and it has that lid that goes up and down. But when it's down, it stays down. It doesn't just flip up by itself. So a few times it happened that I opened the door and the lid was up. And one time I opened the fridge door and I actually saw the lid flip up by itself.
Oh, wow.
And it was securely down, and it actually flipped up, and I heard a click. Like it was flipped up with force, like...
I was just going to say that's interesting because in a lot of these it's sort of, it's a teleportation, you notice it was there and then it's somewhere else, so that's something that's actively happening right in front of you, that you can see that action.
Yeah, it did. I mean, I opened the door and I made experiments like opening the door by itself, even forcefully, wouldn't get the lid to flip up because when it's down, it's secure down. So it actually flipped up by itself. I would suggest under a supernatural influence. And something happened in the bathroom a few years ago, like it was around 2 in the morning, again 2 in the morning. Maybe it's the witching hour for me, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at the toilet paper holder, and as I'm watching, it just pops out and falls on the floor as I'm watching.
This poltergeist likes to just mess with everything.
Well, I can tell you another thing that I saw directly. I was like, okay, I have like a Moen kitchen faucet in the sink, a single lever kitchen faucet. So I was standing like around there, like about 10 feet away, and while I'm looking, the Moen faucet turns on and water starts running in a thin stream about the thickness of a pencil. The faucet turned on by itself.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't do that. A Moen kitchen faucet cannot turn on by itself. So it just turned on by itself as I was watching.
So how many incidents would you say you've been calculating, you've been documenting everything, how many incidents at this point have happened?
79 unique incidents.
Wow.
I'm not counting the ones that were repeats.
Okay.
So if I count the ones that were repeats, it would probably go up to like 85 or something like that.
Wow, it's very active.
Between 2019 and the present day, 2025. But the very first thing, the way how it all started was with rubber band. Basically, the rubber band is like this to hold the bag in place. So what happened was, one day I look at the basket and there's no rubber band, but I actually then see the rubber band on the floor over here. So I put it next to the garbage pail for recycling, like that.
Yeah.
And the next morning, the rubber band was no longer around the garbage pail, but wrapped around the middle of the oat milk container. Okay, again with rubber bands, like I put this Kleenex box over here. It was empty for recycling.
Mm-hmm.
And the rubber band, like about an hour later, I looked and the rubber band was no longer around the garbage pail, but wrapped around the middle of this Kleenex box.
Yeah.
And this is authentic. This is not a recreation.
This is the exact one.
This is the exact one. This rubber band was not put there by human hands.
Oh, wow.
I was about 10 feet away, and it just turned on like that by itself.
Yeah.
You see this wire rack here?
Mm-hmm.
I always have it like this, side to side.
Yeah.
One day I come in and it's front to back. This, a few times I opened the door and it was up like this.
Mm-hmm.
But you see it's very secure, like it just doesn't flip up by itself. And it wouldn't flip. One time I opened the door and I actually saw it flip up by itself while I opened the door. While I was opening the door, like, it was very quick. Like that, firm.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just opening the door wouldn't do that.
Yeah, and you can see that it's not like there's a bit of give right here too.
Yeah.
Like it's not something that would easily flip up.
Exactly. Even if I put it at the midway point, well, it actually tends to fall down.
Yeah.
Usually. So that flipped up by itself, I would suggest to you. One day I'm standing over here doing something, and I feel something drop to my feet.
Mm-hmm.
I look down. It's the towel. It's this towel. Somehow it had teleported.
And it had been in the cabinet.
It was in there.
Oh wow.
Somehow it had teleported through the closed door, maybe rematerialized at knee level, and fell down to my feet where I felt it on my feet. And I looked down and there it was.
Wow.
This was originally in this top cabinet over here. It was up here.
Okay.
So this was mounted like on the side, and there was a stack of these containers nearby. So one day I look at the container, and 4 of these containers had been removed from the stack and inserted into this plastic container. Okay, you see, I have a set of 3 plates like this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I've had 3 plates for decades.
Yeah.
So basically I keep one here and 2 down below that I use as trivets.
Yeah.
Okay, so one day what happened was the 3rd plate appeared here, so that all 3 plates were down below. You see?
Yeah.
Now about
That's
a
a
week.
heavy thing to move.
Yeah. Now a week later, something even more amazing happened.
Mm-hmm.
A 4th identical plate appeared out of nothingness,
What?
tucked under this disposable aluminum roasting dish, as you see it here. Another thing that happened at the beginning is I bought this plug for the sink in the bathroom, but I didn't need the chain. So I cut off the chain completely. But what happened was I had cut off the chain completely, leaving only the ring. But overnight I looked, and a single link from the chain had re-established itself on the ring.
Oh, weird. And you'd completely removed the chain.
And the chain was in the garbage. So I was thinking of putting it like on the floor of the bathtub, because I was about to go take a shower. I left the room, and when I came back, it was already on the floor of the bathtub, and I didn't hear it fall or anything. Now, it couldn't have just fallen down by itself, and it was neatly done. Now, I'll show you what happens when it falls down by itself.
Yeah.
See?
Exactly.
It would be like that. But I didn't hear anything. Like, these things happen completely silent. When the poltergeist does something, it's usually completely silent, but not always. Like, one time I was doing my business on the toilet. I hear a sliding motion. I look.
Oh.
And this was open, like that.
Huh.
But it was closed before, so that slid open by itself. Once, sometimes I go into my drawer here to get stuff, but you see it's a tight fit. You always have to close it, usually to leave the room, otherwise it's pretty tight.
Yeah.
But one day I came back from shopping or whatever, and I came back, and the drawer was open like this. And for sure it was closed. And my mother was living here at the time. I'm sure wouldn't have done it because she was using a walker, and she's too fragile to have done it, and why would she?
Yeah.
My clock radio turned on by itself a few times, and when I looked, this was this switch. And the thing is, when it turned on, it wasn't in the alarm position. It had been turned on to the on position. So it's not like the alarm turned on the radio. Some force pushed the switch, and this happened a few times. One time I woke up and this calendar was like that.
Oh yeah, I think we wrote about that one.
Yeah.
We had that in our video.
Yeah. This picture fell down by itself, but the loop wasn't broken. Like I heard it slide down in the middle of the night, but the loop wasn't broken.
So it would have had to have been pulled sort of off of the nail.
Yeah, the nail was at about a 45-degree angle, and something would have had to actually pull it up and off, because it just slid down in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
See this blue blanket? One day I woke up and the blanket was like that.
They were trying to make your bed.
So basically, while I was sleeping, the blanket was folded back and folded like that by itself.
Oh wow.
And there's no way I could have done that while I was sleeping because it's too neat, too deliberate, and also the comforter is secured.
Yes.
So basically, the comforter doesn't move. One time I was standing where you are, but like a little in the middle, and this door had opened by itself while I was standing here. Like while I was here, I turned around and this door, the door's open like that. I put this in without the aluminum foil candle holder. I come back about half an hour later. The aluminum foil candle holder had appeared there, inserted underneath the electric candle and nested into the candelabra.
Oh wow.
By itself. It teleported from the cabinet in the kitchen directly underneath the electric candle and into the candle holder. This is the second time this happened. The first time this happened, there was no electric candle here, but it just showed up and inserted in the middle without anything. And that was like a few months before this.
Okay.
That underneath, like that chair, a white pebble about 1 centimeter in diameter had appeared. But I threw it out without thinking about it, unfortunately.
Okay.
And also in the back bedroom, a ring about 1 inch in diameter made of twist ties twisted together had appeared on the carpet. I opened this sliding door, and this object appeared in the track.
Okay. What is that?
But it's not connected to any mechanism in the door. I looked. It's blue rubber with fins, and I don't know what the heck it is. And there's like a tapering channel going through the middle of it. I mean, they say that unusual events require like ironclad evidence or something along those lines, but I can't ever provide that evidence. I can only show you what I have.
Yeah. And we're back with just a couple more questions for you before we wrap this up.
If you could ask just one question to the poltergeist and have an answer, what would it be?
Who are you?
That makes sense.
Yes.
And on my end, I'm wondering, now this came up in our comments on YouTube. My dad, actually, I call him a paranormal dampener, because anytime he comes somewhere where there's hauntings, if someone says they have a ghost following them around, they will not come out, the ghost will not come out around him. Oftentimes he can sort of put an end to that haunting. He used to want to do a TV show where he went around doing this, and I would tell him, people probably don't want that because they want to see the ghosts.
Right.
So he asked in the comments, if you had the opportunity, would you want to get rid of your poltergeist?
No, I would not, because I think it's absolutely fascinating. It goes against what we know about physics and nature, and I want it to continue because I think I'm experiencing something unique and special. So far it's not harming me unless you count that fall that I had, which is kind of disturbing and scary.
It is.
But besides that, I would certainly like it to continue because frankly I think it's fascinating.
I agree. I would want the same too. It's rare to have such a frequent paranormal experience.
I think I'm very fortunate because I'm experiencing something that the vast majority of people never experience, and I feel that I've actually been privileged to be given this window into the hidden reality of our universe.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything you'd like to say before we wrap up the interview about the paranormal or about poltergeists?
I would argue that my experiences imply that our reality is not physical, but is taking place on a purely conscious level. Because if there were like a real physical objects, they could not just appear, disappear, teleport. But if our universe is taking place on a purely mental level, in other words, if the only thing exists is consciousness and we're sharing like a common reality, a collective dream, then these things could happen, but not in a physical reality where there is actually solidity to things. So I would argue that this is evidence for a non-physical reality and idealistic model of the universe.
That's fascinating. I feel like this is something, that topic alone is something we could discuss at a future time on a deeper level. It would be very interesting.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
That's a pleasure.
That's it for today, but before we wrap up, we'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to stay updated on all of our latest content, including updates from Jeff. Share your thoughts on this episode, and feel free to include any of your own ghost stories with us in the comments. While you wait for our return, be sure to check out the original blogs by Donovan King over at hauntedmontreal.com, where you can also get tickets for in-person haunted storytelling experiences. Do note that we will be taking our customary July break, but we'll be back in August with new spooky tales for your viewing and listening pleasure. But until then, stay spooky.